Hello, college football fans, and welcome to episode 23 of College Football Throwdown. I am your co-host, Alex Schmitz, and today I'm joined by my dad, Peter Schmitz.
Hi there.
All right. Yes, we are here today to talk about our great team, our beloved team. Maybe we shouldn't say great team. The Nebraska Cornhuskers. We're going to be talking about the Purdue game this week and previewing the upcoming Michigan State game. And for those of you who haven't listened to us before, this is College Football Throwdown. We are a father-son duo that got together to do this college football podcast. That is by college football fans for college football fans. We talk about national topics on our nationally focused podcast, as well as our weekly introspections on the Cornhuskers. And this week was the Purdue game. I was watching this one on ESPN on their app, or watch ESPN, I guess I should say, on my computer. And you were at work, so you were kind of half following the game. But I ended up giving up in the third quarter. I'm a little ashamed to say it, but I just couldn't watch it anymore after we threw another interception.
Yes. Well, you know, the bottom line is we're sounding a little bit like a broken record at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there are. Okay, let's start with some positives. Okay.
Well, maybe I need to open my beverage first before I have to listen to this. Here we go.
Oh,
Okay.
That was a good one.
There you go.
It's our tradition after all.
Yes.
Okay, so I remember like this kind of changed later on, especially once we let their quarterback get off that big run that got them their first touchdown. But they were talking about how like we were holding them, like we were doing pretty good in our running game, or defensively stopping their running game, I should say, early on, and we showed some grit in that we were actually calling run plays consistently and getting four-ish yards, on a number of them, so getting first downs that kind of marched us down, and then we got stopped and we kicked that first field goal, I think. But there was some signs near the beginning of that game that we were showing an improvement in that regard. Then that kind of dissipated later on in the game, obviously. But there were two strong points early for our team, at least.
Yes. Well, and the bottom line, Alex, is that until this game, you could have made a bunch of excuses, a series of excuses for why Nebraska had lost a lot of the previous games. This was an inexcusable loss. This was the first one where you really point at it and you say, boy, in this case, Nebraska just flat out underachieved. They didn't show up to play their A game at all, and it just was awful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's just no excuse.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at our previous 5 losses before that one, we lost those 5 games by a total number of 13 points collectively between all 5 of those losses. It was just 13 points that separate us from victory. So I mean, we really every single game, we were competitive. Now, this is closest in comparison to the Miami game, because in the Miami game, I also kind of gave up because we were looking so bad in the third quarter, but then we pulled ourselves out of it a bit and had that crazy run. We didn't quite have that here. But the other positive I wanted to talk about was that, and I haven't actually watched the fourth quarter of the game at all, honestly. So this might be more a bit of their defense kind of slowing down a little bit because they kind of thought they had the game in the bag. But we kept scoring points throughout the game, and it ended up only being a 10-point deficit. So we were moving the ball against them. And if we didn't have 5 freaking turnovers, we would have won that game probably without too much of a issue. It wouldn't have been... I mean, I'm not saying we would have dominated, but it wouldn't have been, we could have won by 10 or 14 points or something like that, But it's hard to win against any team, no matter how different the different gap, how much of a gap there is in talent when you're -5 in turnovers.
That's absolutely true. You just don't win games like that. But the issue that we have to recognize is, why did we put our first-time starter walk-on quarterback? Why did we put him in that situation? Those are some of the fundamentals that keep coming back over and over again. And I think I've come to the conclusion and the recognition that this offensive coordinator that we have that's calling the plays does not know how to establish and remain committed to a running game. His background, where he is comfortable, is in throwing the football. Mm-hmm. And so we're not going to get what we desire from him unless and until we have such a dominant running game that he's compelled to do it by virtue of that. And so, when are we going to get to that point? I don't know.
Although here's 2 points I would say. One, I don't have a problem with us starting the game as Riker Fife as our QB, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but besides Armstrong, he's the other quarterback on the team with the most experience in terms of how long he's been with the team.
Absolutely.
And games played and all that. So I think it makes sense for him to be out there at the beginning of the game. Now, after he's thrown like his second pick or third turnover or whatever, that might be the point where you try to switch it out to see if the other guy can make something happen. I don't know why we.
Another criticism I would have of the coaching staff, for whatever reasons, they are unwilling to roll the dice and at least give another player a chance. If the guy who you've chosen as your starter isn't getting it done, you need to be willing to go to the next man up and give them a try, even if you know from your eyes during practice that this guy was supposed to be better. There is an absolutely a difference between people who rise up on game day and people who are better practice players, but don't tend to demonstrate that same capability, on game day. And we have to recognize that. And right now, I don't get a sense that our coaches even concede that could happen. They seem to be hell bent on staying with the guys that they think they have evaluated in practice are the best players. When your offensive guard's getting his ass blown up every play, you go to the next guy, even if you don't think he's as good, in the hopes that maybe he'll rise to the occasion.
Mm-hmm. And then the other point I was going to make in defense is that, we've harped on this a million times on the podcast, and I absolutely agree with you that we need to have more of a commitment to the running game. The fact that Langsdorff is so ridiculously focused on the passing game is a detriment to our team. But we were having success throwing the football against them. We had over 407 passing yards, Riker Fife did, or something like that. So, we were getting some drives. When I actually looked at the stats afterwards, we had 28 first downs, they had 20. We had 484 total yards, they had 457. Our times of possession were pretty much identical, 29 minutes to 30 minutes. We had about the same amount of penalties, So, really, we were with them or better than them in pretty much all the stats except for turnovers, obviously. And obviously, Fife threw some atrocious balls that led to those interceptions. But in other drives, he was having success throwing the football. So I can kind of understand why they would continue working with what was working in terms of passing it. Now, I don't necessarily think Fife should have stayed in the game after he turned the ball over that many times.
Okay, so what does the coaching staff do? At some point, you're agreeing with me then that one of the keys here is you've got to be willing to give it a go and make a change. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's the key.
Well, and it certainly doesn't help that we lost two of our best players in Pearsonell and is Newby legit injured?
Don't know what his situation is, and also Westerkamp.
That's right. Well, and he came back. He came back out on the field, but
the question is he going to be gimpy, the rest of the season type of deal? So we'll see. But bottom line is that we have to recognize that this is a full-blown transition at this point. That we can no longer concede that this was going to be some slight transition, and that we were going to be able to take advantage effectively of the talent that we had on the team, because our coaching staff has shown an inability to do that. So now we have to pretty much wait until they get their kinds of players and see if, after the loyalty issues that might be part of the issue here, relative to Bo Pelini's players maybe not fully buying in, combined with their scheme and concept versus what those players that are currently on the roster are capable of. You combine those two things, and what is the status going to be?
Right.
So
Yep.
we'll see.
Yep. We should probably talk about this. You had forwarded me an email last week after the podcast from a discussion, something one of the guys on one of the Husker forums had posted from a conversation he had with an anonymous player who he didn't reveal who that was, but somebody on the team who was talking about how, in his perception, Bo's staff was a little bit more like played favorites a little bit, whereas he found that Riley's staff had done a better job of trying to spread the wealth, as it were, and were just teaching them better fundamentals in practice, and that there was a small number of players on the team who maybe were a little more allied with Bo and weren't giving it their all, but that he was on board with Riley 100% and said, we're working through it right now. I know we're struggling, but we're close. That was kind of his message. And that did give me some hope in terms of the fact that, this coaching staff, we have shown improvements in many areas from where we were in game one to where we are now, certainly.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, I'm questioning whether we'll win another game this season, and pretty much all of the goals that we had, including even winning season, maybe getting to a bowl game, those are all pretty much out unless we pull a rabbit out of a hat and win this weekend against Michigan State, and then proceed to beat Rutgers and Iowa as well. Then we would be 6-6. But the likelihood of that happening is slim and none. And so we're looking at a season without the benefit of the extra 15 or 20 days of practice before a bowl game, which doesn't help you build additional skills and such. And this is a season that tragically just needs to come to an end, and we just move on, clean the slate, and hope that by the beginning of next season, either Tommy and some of the other players have developed enough of an understanding of what the coaches are wanting to accomplish and being able to do it physically, or not. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
So but bottom line is that was a devastating loss to observe, and I'm very disappointed that it's come down to this. But at this point, I think as a Nebraska fan, you have to accept it, recognize that screaming and hollering and clamoring for change at this point is not a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, I feel like at this point, 4-8 would be, I think we're capable of that, because I mean, we're not beating Michigan State, and I doubt that especially if we'll have to see how Iowa does, but given that they're undefeated at the moment and the clear winner of our division, I don't think we're going to beat them either. So my best hope is that we don't get ourselves blown out by either of those two teams, and then we find ourselves to beat Rutgers, which would bring us to 4-8.
Right.
Yeah, and there was another thing I thought I had. When I was looking through all the teams, like the week 9, I guess it was week 9 games for all the top 25 teams for our national podcast that we're gonna have next. But I noticed a lot of them have only played like 8 games. A lot of them have had a bye by this point in the season, and we have not. I think we're unusual in that regard.
So we have a very late bye.
Yeah, so I'm not going to say that that's like having a bye week would be a decisive factor in us like winning one of these games necessarily, but I do think there's something to how our team could have been benefited by having like a bye after one of those losses to kind of reconstitute ourselves a little bit, instead of having to constantly be looking forward and not having that moment to look in on the team, you know?
Right. Well, and so, it's just another little detail in the whole makeup of our season and what has caused this set of circumstance to occur. But bottom line is that as Nebraska fans, we need to just look to the future and hope that we can continue to get better and build on something for the remainder of this season so that we have something to look forward to for next year. Because I still think we have quite a bit of talent, and I don't think anybody on the team is leaving for the pros early. We may see some talented players leave the team just because I think there's clearly some people who are not fully engaged, not fully bought into what's going on. And I think Riley needs to seriously look at his staff and ask himself the question, do I really have the guys that are going to help me to get where we want to go? And there might be a need for one or two of those staff members to maybe take it on down the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think no matter what, there needs to be some serious considerations about what needs to be changed, over the offseason. Because if Riley doesn't change anything and thinks that it's just we need more time to implement the system, maybe that would work. But I feel like there's you don't have this type of season without there being something deeper wrong.
Right. Well, and I think he needs to do some soul searching himself. Does he really, can he come to the realization that I think a lot of the fans and the Nebraska faithful have, which is that he needs to find a way in his philosophy to increase his commitment to the running game, and whether he has that by having a heart-to-heart conversation with his current athletic director, or whether he has a decision on his own to maybe move in a different direction with that position, with the athletic director. I mean, with the offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, because I mean, what he's got moving forward, if he thinks that throwing the football 65-70% of the time is going to be the way to go, then it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and one final message, I guess, to the Cornhuskers listening out there. I know we're all talking about looking at the next season because we don't really have a choice at this point. There's not a lot to salvage here because we're not going bowling, pretty much, unless, like you'd say, we pull off some sort of crazy miracle. But at the same time, I don't want to preach that too hard because we gotta still watch the games and try to cheer on the team and stuff. Because if the team gets into that kind of philosophy too, then we're going to lose all three of these next games. And I think we're capable of beating Rutgers at the very least, and competing, with Iowa and Michigan State and not getting blown out at the very least.
Oh, I agree. I think, yeah. I mean, we're certainly capable of putting a scare into Michigan State. We're capable of beating, Rutgers and Iowa. I mean, you look at Iowa and who they've played and how they've played, with the exception of their dominant win at Northwestern, there's no game that I've seen where I look at them and say, oh, they're way better than us. Mm-hmm. Even with DeMornay Piersonell out. I mean, DeMornay's season has been basically a non-factor for us, and now he's gone for the year. And my only hope is that DeMornay can recover from his injuries and be reasonably close to himself again next year. I question whether that'll be true. I think I think it's going to be very hard for him to recover from those injuries and be the player that he was.
Mm-hmm. In terms of his speed and everything.
Right. So, bottom line, let's do our predictions for this upcoming game against Michigan State.
Oh, yeah. I forget.
We can go from there.
Forgot to mention it. We had predictions for the Purdue game last week. I predicted a 28-21 victory, and you predicted a 35-21 victory. So You're both wrong. Woohoo!
Yay! It seems like that's pretty regular this year, my son.
Well, even when we predicted a victory and we won, we were usually off in terms of the score. I mean,
Well, sure, that's not unusual.
well, that's true. Okay, so yes, the Michigan State game. I'm going to go in with hope here, and I'm going to predict that we lose, but I'm going to say that we perform. We don't get blown out. We put up a fight. Through like 3 quarters. And then in the fourth quarter, maybe they pull away from us and show some domination. So I'm going to say that MSU beats us, let's say 42 to, what would that be, 28.
Okay, 42-28. That's not a blowout, but that's a sound victory. I would say I would hope for something similar to that as well. I hope that we're smart enough to run the football to basically shorten the game, and because if we happen to have a couple of good things go our way, like we get a turnover here or there, and we're able to stay close or even take a lead, I think the critical thing will be making the game short. So if these guys are smart enough, like I say, to start running the football more, that will do 2 things for us. It'll keep us from getting blown out. It'll accelerate the game, and it'll allow us to protect our quarterback a little bit more effectively, so that when we do choose to pass it, that he's maybe got a little easier path for decision making. So I'm going to say it's going to be a lower scoring game for us, and I'm hopeful that we can slow them down a little bit. But they're coming off a bye week. They're as healthy as they've been all season. Their offensive line, which has been in shambles most of the year, is starting to re-emerge. I'm afraid that my worst nightmare is going to happen, and I think they're going to beat us by hanging half 100 on us. So I'm going to predict a 55-21 victory for the visitors from East Lansing.
Yep, I mean that certainly is a possibility after showing last week. I mean, like you say, that's our first. The Purdue loss is our first truly bad loss. The other ones have been frustrating and painful, certainly, but that's our first loss where we were truly just inept, basically.
Right. Well, and you questioned whether their effort was good enough.
Right. Well, and it's not an excuse, but I mean, we were decimated by injuries at the beginning of the season, and now more recently, if Tommy's not playing, I would say my score is would be dependent on Tommy coming back reasonably healthy. I think if it's Riker, Fife, and or the guys behind him playing, I think our chances of having a solid showing decrease for sure.
Right. I would agree. So it is what it is. So the message for Nebraska fans has got to be one of looking longer term while cheering for the guys and supporting the team and, frankly, the coaches, because they are who they are for right now. And we're going to have to support them, and it's better to do that and see what happens, give them a chance to recruit some of the players that they want, and let's see what happens. These coaches, this isn't their first rodeo. They've been here before. They know what they're doing to a large extent. We might not agree with everything, but by golly, let's give them a chance to put this thing together, and let's go.
All right. Well said. So if you all out there enjoyed this podcast, you can email us at huskerpete13@gmail.com. You can find us on footballthrowdown.podomatic.com. You can leave us comments on that page or on the Podomatic app. And you can find us on iTunes. We're College Football Throwdown on iTunes. Sorry. And leave us ratings and reviews there. We like hearing from you guys whenever possible. So thank you for listening out there, Husker Nation. And forever and always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.